Hello, welcome to Microfiche Microphone. I'm Micah, and on this channel we look at microfiche from the past, old newspaper articles in the public domain. We look at them with our modern eyes, our modern perspective, and see what we can learn from them. On this microfiche time capsule, we are looking back at the Gentleman's Magazine from April 1800, and this article is entitled Asylum for Orphans of Soldiers and Sailors. I thought that was a little bit interesting because I wanted to know how things like this were organized back then. Like what was undertaken to care for the people that are left behind when someone dies in military service. And that's kind of what that is about, I'm assuming. So I wanted to see what was done in those days. Anyway, in Britain in 1800. So let's take a look. Mr. Urban, Dudley, February 15th. Being persuaded that many and useful institution owes its origin to your valuable magazine. Wow, really? Through that medium permit an admirer of British valor to suggest an additional plan to the several which have already been proposed to perpetuate the memory of our great martial achievements. There's a star. Let's see if we can find the star. Why should the compliment be confined to the Navy? Well, I mean, the British Navy was much more powerful than the British Army at the time, so it does make sense to me that they specifically mentioned Navy. I feel like there are more Navy military than there are Army military in Britain in 1800. I could be wrong. I'm going to look that up afterwards, but that would make sense to me why they focused more on the Navy at the time in other articles, but this person wanted to specifically be neutral to the branch of the military. Yeah, just military in general. Without wishing to decry the merits of other designs, I am humbly of opinion that a living monument will be the most preferable, which shall consist of those children under a certain age whose fathers have fallen, or shall hereafter fall, in the service of their country. My plan is this. After a suitable place for their reception is erected, whether by government or by subscription, let a fund, by similar means, be established for their support, etc., where, in habits of piety, industry, and moral order, they may be educated, either for useful trades or for the army or navy, and shall be deemed most proper. As shall be deemed most proper. Nor would the adoption of this plan preclude the beautiful, the grand, and sublime productions of architecture and sculpture. Within a spacious circular hall, or rather a chapel, a number of niches may be formed to receive the busts of our martial heroes, and under them a mural table of marble on which to record their particular achievements. Such monumenta, being sheltered from the weather and visited as in a sanctuary, would be far more durable than any column, arch, or bridge that could be constructed, and on surveying the tout ensemble, together with its happy living appendages, a generous contributing public may exclaim, oh gosh, it's in Latin, isn't it? Exegi monumentum sere perennius, quod non imber edax, non aquilo impotent possit, could be possit, direre at innumerabilis, anorum serias, et fuga temporum. I will look that up later. There's just so much Latin in these. It's so funny. I guess everybody must have spoken Latin, or everybody who was educated, maybe. I don't know. It's annoying, though. I know, Mr. Urban, that the gates of the Foundling Hospital are open to children of slain soldiers and sailors, as well as to those pitiable fruits of shame who know not the authors of their being. But I cannot help thinking that two objects are thus blended, which ought to be kept totally distinct. The British sailor and the British soldier are characters, methinks, whose fatherless children deserve so highly the peculiar protection of their country as to call for an asylum solely instituted for them. No objects surely have a better claim to admittance into the national establishment, whether the merit or the necessity of the case be considered. If such children be not entitled by their own distress and their father's services to peculiar protection, no such case can exist. Is it said that a child of this description is not absolutely destitute, that it has still a parent in its living mother? Let Longhorn, with a trifling alteration, answer this. Cold on the sea-beat shore or bloody plain, perhaps that parent mourned her warrior slain. Bend o'er her babe, her eye dissolved in dew, the big drops mingling with the milk he drew, gave the sad presage of his future years, the child of misery baptized in tears. That's a bit intense. In a word, an asylum for children of slain soldiers and sailors agrees well with the idiom of the English language. It does more, Mr. Urban. It would be found so strictly accordant with the generous texture of the English heart that it might easily, I am persuaded, form a proper addition to the already glorious catalogue of English institutions. Fiat. Yours, etc., L. Booker. Interesting. I have to take exception a little bit to them saying that a child of a fallen soldier is worth, like, more, worthy of more care than a child of unknown parentage. Yeah, like a child that is in need of help is a child in need of help. You know, I don't really feel like they should discriminate against whether they were a child of fallen soldiers or not, although I do understand them having more funds at their disposal and having a fund set up for them. That makes sense to me. It would be some sort of GI Bill, yeah, in a sense, like, you know, but like saying that they're worth more than the parentless child of unknown parentage, like, still a child in need of help, yeah? And still a child who needs direction and needs a place to stay and needs stability. I don't really feel like there's a huge difference there, but obviously, yeah, it's not my call. Anyways, I thought that was interesting. I'm going to look up a couple of things, yeah? Let's start with how big was the Army and Navy in 1800, yeah? Okay, so in the year 1800, there were about 80,000 regular troops, which is interesting considering that today there's only almost about the same amount, and considering that there were considerably more people today than there was then, like, that's a little bit surprising. But, yeah, obviously during World War II there was quite a few more, World War I as well. Other than that, it was actually relatively low. The numbers were relatively low. 80,000, though, at the time was much higher than the few years before that. In 1790, it was only 17,000. So then let's look up the British Navy, yeah? History of the Royal Navy. Yeah, after 1707, 120,000. Okay, yeah, that makes sense, yeah. I just found this on Napoleon.org, 120,000 in 1799, so I'm assuming it was around the same in 1800. That's a lot. That's a lot. 120,000 compared to the 80,000 Army. So it does make sense. There were more people in the Navy than there was in the Army. Okay. So that answers that question. Now let's go to Google Translate. And we are going to go from Latin, not Latvian, Latin to English, yes, because I do not speak Latin. Okay, I don't know if this is right, because I don't know if I'm reading it correctly, or if it's even spelled correctly. So, taken with a grain of salt. This is through Google Translate. This is what happens when I'm trying to read an old document of a language I don't know. So here's what Google Translate said. I spent the monument to zero for a long time. That which is not consumed by the rain is not impotent to the north. It may be destroyed or innumerable, the series of years and the flight of seasons. What do I get from that? I'm not sure. I mean, it basically, if I'm interpreting that correctly, it says basically, like, you have two options. Either something will be destroyed or it will become innumerable so that only the strong survive, kind of a thing. Is that what they mean? Like, over time, the strong survive and become stronger? I mean, is that the direction they're going? Yeah, I think that's what they mean. I think they mean that the weak will fail and the strong will survive. It's kind of a Darwinism kind of a statement, I think. of like, if you wait long enough, then only the strong will still be around, and so even these weak things will then eventually leave. So I think that what they're trying to say is that the public sentiment is kind of like, well, don't bother taking care of them, of these foundling children, because they're just weak and the strong will survive, and that's how the world goes around, basically. I think that's where they're going with this, and that's this writer, L. Booker, had this feeling that most people felt that way, but that this person felt that the country had a duty towards these children of the fallen soldiers, and that wasn't appropriate just to leave them to their own devices, as some people would have them do. And I think that's what he was trying to say. I wish he hadn't said it in Latin, but I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think that's what he was trying to say, if I can interpret that to that point. I'm assuming gender here, but he was definitely saying that it's important to support the children. He also said fiat at the end, which apparently means let it happen. So he's saying, hey, set up an asylum for the children of wounded soldiers, of slain soldiers and sailors, and let it happen. Let's do this. I appreciate the suggestion. I do think it's a good suggestion. By the way, the word asylum back then just basically meant an institution that takes care of people in general. It didn't necessarily mean like an insane asylum, which it obviously can mean, but in this case it was called an orphan asylum, or an orphanage. So it just depends on your wording, but don't be thrown off by the word asylum. Anyway, I thought that was very interesting, and also I found it fascinating that actual change was happening because of suggestions written into this particular newspaper. I know this was a very popular newspaper at the time, however, which is why I wanted to read it, obviously. But I find it interesting that the suggestions made here in this forum were actually making real changes in politics and in organizations and things. So I think that's a very good thing, and hence why we are reading it. So good job them. I wonder, did they ever set it up? Let's find out. As obviously we are past that part. Support of orphans of military. Little Troopers. Supporting all military children who have parents serving in our British military. That's closer, yeah? Supporting military families. About Little Troopers. Supporting all children of our British Armed Forces. Cute. Little Troopers in schools, Little Troopers at home. Little Troopers is a registered charity supporting all children with one or both parents serving in our British Armed Forces, regular or reserve. These children face unique daily challenges due to their parents' career choice, especially when they experience repeated separation of varying lengths of time from their serving parents due to exercises and operations, plus moving home and school frequently due to service requirements. As a charity, we ensure all Little Troopers have fundamental resources available to ease and aid any separation period. It is important to us that support can be reached self-sufficiently from wherever military children are based, that initiatives are in existence to keep serving parent and child connected when miles separate, and that there is a community celebrating how special all the Little Troopers out there really are. Our charity was first created back in 2011, and since that time has grown, changed, and become the much-loved military children's charity and vital support toolbox that now exists. A small charity with a big heart doing the very best for all the children of our British Armed Forces. Okay, this is relatively recent, though. This is also not official. This is a separate charity, and it's not from the government. And I wonder what kind of support they offer, because I don't feel like that was very clear. Okay, this sounds a little more official. Support to Armed Forces Families and Partners. This is from armedforcescovenant.gov.uk. And the reason I say it's more official, gov.uk, is sounds pretty official, yeah? Government supported. Support to Armed Forces Families and Partners. Families offer considerable support to those serving or those who have served in the armed forces. There are special initiatives under the Armed Forces Covenant to support family in the armed forces and for veteran families. Some policies will apply to you and others will not. This section will direct you to the right place, blah, blah, blah. Areas where support for family is available include Veterans and Families Directory of Services. Okay, I like that. Grouped into categories such as education and training, employment, finances, etc. E-learning for armed forces families. I like that as well. Moving between devolved administrations and returning from overseas. So they guide you through that process. Supporting children in education. Here we go. In collaboration with the Department of Education and the Ministry for Defense's Directorate for Children and Young People, there have been changes to the Common Transfer File from September 2018. CTF is the means by which state schools and local authorities in England transfer pupil data when a pupil moves from one school to another. So they set up a whole system where they know exactly about the child when the child is transferred to a new school. That's good. An updated leaflet explaining the role of the Children's Education Advisory Services is here. From September 2018, when a school receives a CTF with a service child flag indicator set to yes, an alert will be raised, asking that A, the appropriate member of staff be informed of the identity of the service child joining the school, and B, where the concerns section and the service child section of the CTF have not been completed, that the appropriate member of staff be informed and advised to contact the CTF sending school for clarification. The service child section has been added to the CTF that asks additional questions based around a child's response to moving school, parental deployment, and parental separation due to extended training periods or other forms of duty. A free text box has also been added to which a school can include details about any concerns, gaps in education, strength of child, etc. That's great. Okay. There's a bunch of forms. I'm just going to skip those. Child care. MOD personnel based in the UK have the same access to child care choices as any other citizen. Since 2013, the MOD has been working to ensure that any changes to child care entitlements can be mirrored so far as is reasonably practicable to do so for entitled MOD personnel based outside the UK. I like that. So they also do their best to make sure that the same child care level is available in every place they go. That's really good. Tax-free child care, TFC, was introduced by the government in April 2018 and fully rolled out by the end of 2018, replacing the child care voucher scheme, which closed to new entrants in October 2018. TFC is a savings account which working parents can use to pay for regulated child care. For every £8 the parent pays in, the government will top up by £2 for a total of £2,000 per year, or £4,000 for disabled children. Yeah, that's okay. It's not that much. That could be better. In England, parents with children ages 3 and 4 years old can, from the term following the child's third birthday, access 15 hours free childcare. I like that. Since September 2017, working parents in England who meet the eligibility criteria can access an additional 15 hours of free childcare. Very good. Entitlements differ across the UK. Where reasonably practicable to do so, English entitlements are available to personnel overseas. The 30 hours free childcare code issued by government is not valid for use outside of England. Directorate Children and Young People has worked closely with DfE and HM Revenue and Customs to ensure service parents returning to England from Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and overseas can apply for 30 hours childcare code before they arrive back in England. This will ensure that entitlements are not missed, especially when parents move mid-term and would not be able to apply within termly deadlines set by the DfE. Termly, huh? I've never heard that word before. Okay, must be a British thing. Parents who are due to return to England after a term deadline, blah, blah, blah. One of the many services the Armed Forces Charity provides is a national registered adoption agency, supporting members of the armed forces who wish to create a family through adoption. Understand the needs for military adopters, and this is the only service of its kind in the UK. Okay, well that's in the other direction. That's for military families who want to adopt a child. What happens to the children of military families when they are no longer around, yeah, and they become orphans. Carers, yeah, having access to health care, yeah, having a home. Okay, so they help you find housing, it looks like. Getting financial advice, yeah. Finance overseas, supporting spouse, partner, careers, and education. Cool, I like that. Okay, and then there's some specific websites of specific branches of the military. Anyways, it sounds to me like it's fairly well organized and it's fairly well, like, taking care of the families of military personnel. So, at least today, obviously it's, could have clearly been much, much different back then. So, I can't say whether or not it was like better, like how good it was back then, but it does sound like this suggestion is a good one. And I wonder if there ever was an orphanage specifically for that. So let me look that up too, really quick. Royal Military Asylum for Children of Soldiers. Okay, Royal Military Asylum for Children of Soldiers of the Regular Army. Later, Duke of York's Royal Military School and Royal Hibernian Military School. Records. Okay, the series contains regulations and orders 1803 to 1908 relating to the administration of the Duke of York's Royal Military School, the Royal Military Asylum for Children of Soldiers of the Regular Army, and of the Royal Hibernian Military School. Minutes of the Commissioners of the Royal Military Asylum, 1801 to 1907. Minutes of the General Board meetings of the Commissioners of the Royal Military School, 1907 to 1953. Interesting. It's everything from 1801 to 1980. It sounds to me like somebody took this suggestion seriously and actually founded an asylum for military children. That is literally what it sounds like, because if this one existed in 1801, then that was immediately after the suggestion. I mean, because it would take several months at least to set everything up. And, like, the fact it was established at Chelsea in 1801 on the initiative of the Duke of York. Wow! Okay, provision of education for soldiers and their children was provided at regimental schools, which began to be established in the second half of the 18th century. A corps of Army schoolmasters was formed in 1846. On 11 June 1920, this was replaced by the Army Education Corps, which in 1946 became the Royal Army Education Corps. Alongside the regimental schools, there were 2 boarding schools for children of serving or deceased officers. These were the Royal Hibernian Military School, Dublin, founded in 1769 for children and orphans of school, and the Irish establishment, so this was not necessarily British, and the Royal Military Asylum for children of soldiers of the Regular Army, established in Chelsea in 1801 on the initiative of the Duke of York. It sounds like the Duke of York reads this magazine. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, that's crazy. In 1892, the latter was renamed the Duke of York's Royal Military School, and in 1908 it moved to Dover. In 1922, the Royal Hibernian School moved to Shorncliffe in 1924, and it merged with the Duke of York School. Okay, that is really cool. So it literally, like, this magazine produced change. This is absolutely amazing, because how many articles do you read in the newspaper that actually make a difference in life? I mean, there's not that many, but like this one literally did, and so my hat's off to you, L. Booker. Well done. Thank you so much for the suggestion, and thank you, Duke of York, for listening to it and funding it. That's amazing. So, yay, Britain, yay! Okay, I am giving you a round of applause. So, anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this one. This was amazing. Like, watching change happen in history. That is so cool. This is why I do what I do. This is why I read these articles, because this is so cool. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.